So welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News and Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time. Okay? Now, needless to say this, make this lecture series a part of your daily routine because daily coverage of current affairs really enhances your preparation. So make it a daily habit. Okay? And just watching this lecture would be job half done because just after watching it, you need to revise it as well. Revise it from the notes provided by us along with this lecture on our Telegram channel. The link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section just below this video. Alright then, let's begin today's discussion. But first, let's take a look at the list of topics that we shall cover today. So let's start. So daily current affairs, 27th August, Wednesday, and here is the topics list. Number 1 on this list is flesh-eating new world screwworm. Okay, infestation of this new parasite was recently seen in USA. So what is this new world screwworm? Okay, it's a parasite. So we'll talk about this disease. Okay, then we'll talk about space related news. Okay, rare quadruple star system that was spotted in Milky Way galaxy, in our galaxy. Okay, so what is this quadruple star system? It's a fascinating news item. Okay, so we'll talk about this. Then you all know about Gaganyaan mission. In Gaganyaan mission, we are going to send our own astronauts to space. Now, various tests are being conducted for Gaganyaan mission, and the airdrop test for Gaganyaan mission was successful recently. So we'll briefly talk about this airdrop test, which is very important for the safety of astronauts when they are going to land back to Earth. So we'll talk about this. Then you all know 50% tariffs on Indian exports, well, they are being enforced from today. Okay, their start or their beginning starts from today. So we'll talk about the impact it will have on Indian exporters. Okay, so this, and in the end, we'll talk about US-India 2+2 dialogue. On one hand, India and USA are fighting. On the other hand, they are cooperating strongly, and they are cooperating through this 2+2 dialogue. So we'll talk about this 2+2 dialogue. Alright, so these are the 5 news items that we shall zero in our attention on. Let's start discussing them one by one, starting with topic number 1, and that is flesh-eating new world screwworm. Okay, now look, what are flesh-eating new world screwworms? So new world screwworms are these worms, these parasites. Okay, the females of these parasites basically lay eggs in human body or in animal body. Wherever there is a wound, okay, wherever there is an open wound or spaces inside human body, well, they lay eggs. When these eggs hatch, the larvae come out of these eggs and they basically drill into human skin, okay, or animal skin. And these larvae, they crawl into human skin and it opens up the wound further. And most of the times, if not treated, it leads to a death. It leads to the death of a person. Clear? Now, the thing is that USA was successful in eradicating this disease, okay, eradicating this parasite from US soil. But recently, an immigrant came from El Salvador and he brought this screwworm back to USA. Okay, so the first case of foreign imported screwworm has appeared in USA. So we will talk about this screwworm, okay, its impact, and what was the way through which USA basically eradicated. USA followed a very good technique to eradicate this. So we'll talk about this. Okay? Alright. So flesh-eating new world screwworm. Okay? The screwworm looks like this. And males are not that dangerous for us. Actually, females are. Because females lay eggs. Okay? When these eggs hatch, they release larvae, and these larvae crawl into human body or animal skin. Generally, these worms actually affect animals more than humans. But if they affect humans, well, basically, well, there will be these maggots like larvae that would crawl into the open wounds, deepen the wounds, and crawl all over your body. Okay. So, what is the life cycle basically? So as you can see, this female worm will lay eggs. Then this larvae would be born out of these eggs and they would drill. That is why they are called screw. because their mouth is like a screw. They drill into human skin or animal skin. Okay, then they will drill. Once their stomachs are full, then they will drop into the soil, where these larvae would convert into these flies. Okay, and then the females of these flies, these insects, would again lay eggs, and this cycle would continue. You understand? There is a female who lays eggs, larvae crawl into human skin, then they drop into soil. Underground, they convert into this insect, fly, and the cycle continues. Clear? Now, New World screwworms. So mostly they affect warm-blooded animals, but rarely humans. But humans can be affected also. Okay? One female can lay up to 300 eggs at a time and may lay up to 3000 eggs during her 10 to 30 day lifespan. So it affects your body. Okay? Then, well, 3000 eggs can be laid. And these eggs are laid into open wounds. Okay? Or openings in human body like nasal cavity and many other openings. Okay? These eggs hatch into larvae called maggots, which burrow into the wounds using their sharp mouth hooks. After feeding the larva, after feeding into your skin, so these are skin eating, the larvae fall into the ground, burrow into the soil, and emerge as adult screwworm flies. Clear? That's how they function. Now, these worms are mostly found in tropical countries. Okay? And in tropical countries, mostly South America, Mexico. And from Mexico, they also entered into USA. Okay? Now, in 1970s and 80s, USA was successful in eradicating this problem. Okay? And because of this experiment by USA, this insect was eradicated from even Mexico also. It still stayed in other parts of South America, but it was eradicated from Mexico. Okay? But that technique has expired, and now this larva or this screwworm has emerged again. But let's talk about the technique used by USA. Okay? So, eradication. So, USA eradicated New World screwworm in 1966 by using a method called sterile insect technique. What is this sterile insect technique? Remember this, because many people are saying that this sterile insect technique can be used to eradicate malaria also and other insect-borne diseases. Nonetheless, what is sterile insect technique? Well, this involved rearing billions of sterile insects, mostly males. So males would be sterile, they cannot reproduce. Okay, they would be males but sterile. Then first you rear them in labs, okay, factories, and then release them into the air. These males would mate with females, reproduce with females. But because they are sterile, these females, they don't know that they are reproducing with a sterile male. Okay, so they would mate, but they won't be able to reproduce. So the population of these these insects, screwworms, would collapse. Okay, because these females would mate, they don't know whether this male is sterile or not. Obviously, the animals won't know. Okay, they'll mate, they'll do their job, but they won't be able to lay eggs. And that's how you eradicate them. However, recently new cases of New World screwworm infestation have been reported in Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and Honduras, and El Salvador also. And from El Salvador, this person traveled to USA, and this first case in USA after so many years emerged. Clear? What is the cause? Remember, I told you that these insects generally impact other animals. Mostly they impact cattle. But because of movement of infested cattle and the possibility that the current strain of sterile insects are not sterile anymore or not that sterile, and that is why these females have started to reproduce. Okay, this technique is not working anymore. Okay, so that is why they have emerged. Nonetheless, remember this word sterile insect technique, and also remember this new word screwworm. It's a worm, okay, parasite, but it's called screw because of its mouth. It's like a screw. It drills into your body, your skin. Okay, make sense? All right, that's about it. Now let's quickly shift our focus to space-based news, and that is rare quadruple star system. So look, you all know that there are stars, and planets revolve around those stars, right? Like our sun. Sun is a star and planets revolve around our sun. Similarly, there are many other stars, way bigger than sun also, way smaller than sun also, and planets revolve around them. Sometimes two stars revolve around each other. Those are known as binary systems. When two stars revolve around each other, okay, that is binary system. But when four stars revolve around each other, that is a quadruple system, and it's a very rare event, okay, very rare system. But this rare system was recently spotted in our Milky Way galaxy, and it's a very significant discovery, okay. Now these four stars basically, okay, two of them are red dwarf stars, two of them are brown dwarf stars. Now the question is, that is why I've included this news in today's lecture. What are red dwarf stars? What are brown dwarf stars? Okay, so let's talk about this. Okay, so rare quadruple star system. Okay, so as you can see, well, this is the rare quadruple star system. It contains two red dwarf stars. Red dwarf stars are like these. They are bigger and they are basically, well, brighter. Okay, and two brown dwarfs. Two red dwarfs, two brown dwarfs. Okay, so as you can see, these are the two red dwarfs, and around them, somewhere over here, there are these two brown dwarfs also. Now, these brown dwarf stars are very dim. Red dwarf stars are brighter. Clear? Make sense? Okay. Now, we'll talk about brown dwarf stars, but first let's talk about red dwarf stars. Okay. So, let me explain to you the red dwarf stars. You know, our sun is also a star. By the way, yes, one more thing. The name of this system, okay, this quadruple star system is UPM G1040. You don't need to remember, okay. Just remember that it's in Milky Way. But the name is this. Clear? Yes. So first let's talk about red dwarf system. What are red dwarf stars? Look, our sun is also a star, but it's not that big a star. Okay, there are many bigger stars, many times bigger than sun that exist in universe. Okay, but sun is a star and it is a small star, but it is big for us. Okay, life sustains because of it. Nonetheless, sun is there, but there are some stars which are even smaller, cooler, dimmer than our sun. Our sun is bright, but there are stars which are dimmer than our sun, less bright than our sun. Okay, those are called red dwarf stars. Red dwarfs are the smallest stars possible. Okay, stars smaller than red dwarfs are not possible. Red dwarfs are smallest stars. Okay, they are cooler, smaller than even our sun. Okay, and their life is also long. I mean, longer life. Okay, they are cooler, long life, small mass, smaller than even sun. The best part about red dwarf stars is that they are the most common stars. Okay, universe is full of them. But the smallest possible stars that can exist are red dwarf stars. Do you know how stars are formed? Let me tell you that, because this information is important for you to understand brown dwarfs. But you understood red dwarfs. Okay. Now, let me tell you how stars are born. So, initially, there is this big cloud of gas and dust. Okay. This big cloud of gas and dust is there. Okay. Now, this big cloud of gas and dust, what happens is that it has mass, it also has gravity. So it starts pulling this big cloud of gas and dust inwards. Okay, this big cloud starts collapsing on itself. It starts to shrink, collapse. Okay, so it becomes more and more dense. Clear? Now, if the mass of this cloud of dust is high, okay, if it has high mass, then gravity would be high. Then it would collapse or squeeze very tight. So much so that nuclear fusion reactions start to happen within these bodies. And once nuclear fusion reactions start to happen, well, then energy is produced. And this energy is emitted in the form of heat and light, like our sun, like all stars. Okay. So the source of energy for any star is nuclear fusion reaction. Clear? Now red dwarfs, you understand. These are the smallest type of stars that are possible in universe. The coolest stars, the dimmest stars, okay, and well, the most common stars. But what about brown dwarfs? What are these brown dwarf stars? Okay, so let's talk about brown dwarfs. You need to know this. You know, brown dwarf stars are also called failed stars, because what happens when this cloud of gas and dust collapses on itself, the mass of brown dwarf stars is so little, is so less, that nuclear fusion never starts. Nuclear fusion never starts, and they behave as if they behave like any other gas planet, like our Jupiter and our Saturn. Okay, so this collapse happens. Okay, but this collapse is not that strong to trigger nuclear fusion reactions, and that is why, well, these stars are not technically stars, because no nuclear fusion reaction is happening. Therefore, they have properties similar to stars as well as similar to planets like Jupiter and Saturn. That is why they are called failed stars. The stars which almost formed, but almost. Okay. Now their atmosphere is similar to gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn. Similar atmosphere to Jupiter and Saturn. Their atmospheres can consist of clouds and molecules like water. Okay. Now brown dwarf stars still can be very large. Okay. Larger than Jupiter. 70 times more massive than Jupiter. But remember, they are technically not stars. Now in this quadruple system which we are talking about, which was found in Milky Way, well, there were two red dwarf stars which were technically stars and two brown dwarf stars which are failed stars. Okay. Now the thing is, because brown dwarf stars are, well, failed stars, they don't emit that much light. They are very dim, and because they are very dim, it is very difficult to locate them. You cannot locate them. The only way you can locate these brown dwarf stars is if they are revolving around a proper star, like in this system. If these brown dwarf stars are not close to any star, you won't be able to find them because they are so dim. Because the light from a nearby star falls on it and then you can spot it. Okay? Nonetheless, scientists, researchers are very much interested in these brown dwarf stars because, well, studying these brown dwarf stars has a lot of advantages. It will really enhance our understanding of the universe. Now, why is it important to study brown dwarf stars? Why study them? Okay, first of all, well, the thing is that if this brown dwarf star is revolving around another nearby star, of course, it would be made up of similar cloud and dust from which this nearby star was formed. Okay, so if we can study this brown dwarf star, okay, its chemical properties, we'll be able to understand the chemical properties or the material of an actual star, right? Plus, studying brown dwarf stars and actual stars and then comparing them would give you an idea about what factors are responsible for formation of stars. Okay, what factors were responsible for not or non-trigger of nuclear fusion reactions? You understand basically what factors are responsible, that what factors make sure that some clouds, a cloud of dust and gas, become stars and some do not become stars. Yes, mass is one factor, but what other factors trigger nuclear reaction? Okay, so through comparison, you'll be able to understand star formation. What factors are responsible for that? Then, well, the thing is, through discussing brown dwarf stars, you will be also able to find out mass distribution in universe. Distribution of mass in universe. Okay, because these brown dwarf stars are not visible. Okay, but if you spot them, you will be able to calculate this much amount of mass in this area. So you'll be able to calculate distribution of mass in the universe, and that is important for astrophysicists. So for mass distribution, for comparison between stars and these brown dwarfs, for understanding the process of star formation, okay? Because to understand what makes a star, you should also look at failed stars. Failed stars will tell you why star formation fails. So it is important to study them. That's why this discovery is important, right? But the whole purpose of including this topic in today's lecture was to make you familiar with these two terms, red dwarf stars and particularly brown dwarf stars. I hope you understood that, okay? Now let's move forward to third topic, and that is airdrop test for Gaganyaan mission. Now look, the thing is, what is Gaganyaan mission? Well, India will enter a select group of countries which are capable of sending astronauts to space on their own. Okay? Now, Gaganyaan mission will demonstrate that capability that India has. Clear? Under Gaganyaan mission, we will, for the very first time, up till now, ISRO was capable of launching satellites, but never astronauts. Through Gaganyaan mission, we will send 3 astronauts into space for 3-4 days, and they will be brought back to Earth. Okay, for 3-4 days, they will be orbiting, these astronauts will be orbiting 400 kilometers above the Earth in an orbit of altitude of 400 kilometers, and then they will be brought back. This entire program is called Human Space Flight Program or Gaganyaan mission. Now, the first flight of these astronauts would take place, recent announcement made by government was, would take place by the end of 2027. Okay, by 2027, end or beginning. Clear? But before that, we need to conduct various experiments. And recently, very important experiment called airdrop experiment was successful, which takes us one step closer to the success of this mission. Clear? Now, the thing is, when Gaganyaan mission, more details about Gaganyaan mission would come out, then we will discuss this entire mission comprehensively. Today, we will only focus on this airdrop test. Okay? Alright, so let's talk about this. So, airdrop test for Gaganyaan. Now, listen to me. The thing is that these 3 astronauts would be taken to space, okay, and then they will be brought back. Now, this bringing back of astronauts safely to Earth is very challenging. Many accidents happen during this phase. This is the final stage. Here, safety precautions are of utmost importance. That's why this test is very important, because we have the capability of sending astronauts to space, but we have to safely bring them back. Many accidents have taken place in the past. Okay. Now, for this final edition of this Gaganyaan mission, airdrop test is significant. What is airdrop test? You know how our astronauts would come back. They would be dropped and then they would splash down. Their spacecraft would splash down in the Indian Ocean, and from there they will be recovered. But that splashdown has to happen properly. Parachutes should open at the right time. Okay, all these things have to be taken care of. So for that, this airdrop test was conducted. And many more airdrop tests would be conducted. This is just the first one. Okay, the name of this test is Integrated Airdrop Test 1. Okay, this airdrop is the final leg of spacecraft's journey back to Earth. Now, this is first test. In this first test, what you do is you take the crew module in which astronauts would be placed. You fly it high above the Earth using a helicopter or aircraft, and then you drop it in the ocean. This is the test. Simply put, drop through helicopter or aircraft. What are we checking? We check the deployment of parachute system and safety during splashdown. Clear? The test, however, cannot simulate actual re-entry to the atmosphere, because this crew module will not be dropped in Gaganyaan mission. The drop won't happen from helicopter. The drop will happen from space. So this crew module, this capsule has to first enter the atmosphere and then safely drop back into the ocean, right? So this helicopter drop is not actual simulation of what will actually happen, but nonetheless it is an important test. For actual simulation, for actual test, well, you need to create, you need to first launch a vehicle that would travel in orbit, and from there you will drop this crew module. Okay, to create re-entry scenario, orbital flights carry the spacecraft outside Earth's atmosphere and then drop. Nonetheless, this is your integrated airdrop test. Clear? By the way, about Gaganyaan mission, well, we will discuss Gaganyaan mission comprehensively when there is any significant development. As of now, well, you should know this. 3 astronauts are there. Okay, these 3 astronauts would travel 400 kilometers above the Earth into space for 3-4 days, mostly 3 days, and then drop back. Okay, then they will be brought back. The launch vehicle used for this mission is LVM or GSLV Mark III, ISRO's heaviest rocket. Clear? And more details are given in your notes, so go through that. And we will quickly shift our focus to fourth news item, and that is 50% tariffs on Indian exports. Okay, earlier Donald Trump levied 25% tariffs on India, and he said that I will levy 25% tariffs, more tariffs, because India is buying from Russia and because Russia is earning that money to fund its war in Ukraine. So we want to pressurize Russia. That is why, for pressurizing Russia, we are punishing India. If India stops buying from Russia, we will reduce this tariff. India did not stop. So earlier there was 25% tariff. Donald Trump added 25% more tariffs. And now Indian exports have 50% tariffs. Indian exports to USA have 50% tariffs. Now, because of these tariffs, Indian exports become expensive in USA. That is why Americans won't buy from India, because earlier they used to buy from India because Indian goods were cheap. But now, because of these taxes, these tariffs, Indian goods will become expensive in American markets. So Americans won't buy from India. So what will happen? Well, Indian exports would drop. Yes, that's the basic of how tariffs impact us. But let's get deep into this topic. Okay, how would these tariffs impact Indian exporters? It's a very short topic, but listen to me carefully. Okay, so 50% tariffs on Indian exports. Clear? Now this will basically impact India's gems and jewelry sector. Okay, we export a lot of gems and jewelry. Then carpets. Okay, then shrimp, seafood. We export a lot of shrimps to USA. All these sectors and many more would be impacted, because now these things would become expensive and Americans would buy from other countries rather than India. That's the purpose. Now this would significantly harm our exports. Okay, now what sort of harm would come? So what would be the impact? Now if exporters want to still survive, they will have to search for other markets other than USA. Okay, because now they won't be able to export that much to USA. So now if they want to survive, they have to search for other markets. Okay, like European Union, Gulf countries. And why European Union and Gulf countries? Many people were saying that now these exporters, these traders won't be able to export to USA. So they'll be forced to sell in India. So earlier the goods that were sold to USA will now be sold in India. So in India, we will get these goods for cheap. Okay, so that's a good thing. People would be able to buy export quality stuff. Okay, but that's not so simple. The thing is that, well, one thing America has, which Donald Trump is using, and that is buying power. Americans are rich and they have very high buying power. Because of their high buying power, okay, people have more money. They are ready to pay high price. And that is why most Indians love to export to USA, because, well, they earn a lot of profit, because Americans are willing to pay this high price. So their profits are high. Indians, on the other hand, are not willing to pay this high price. Okay, they are willing to buy low quality of these products at lower price, but not at this high price. So even if these exporters would sell to India, sell these goods within India, they won't find many buyers. Okay, So selling surplus in India won't be profitable. First of all, if they really want to sell in India, they have to lower their price. And if they will lower their price, because Indians are not willing to pay high price, if they are going to lower their price, their profits would come down. That is why instead of India, they should search for markets like European Union and Gulf countries. Why? Because Europeans have high buying power. Gulf countries have high buying power, more than India. So that is why. By the way, more damage would come to small exporters than big exporters, because big exporters are sitting on a big pile of cash. They can afford to wait till relations between India and USA are normalized. They can afford to wait. They can even afford to wait to search for newer markets. But small exporters who have already taken so much loan, who are already cash strapped, they have to pay salaries to their employees. And banks are after their life to pay back the installments. They can't afford to wait. So small exporters would get more impacted. Okay? And yes, because most of these businesses would be shut down now, because most of these businesses survived on exports to America. Now they'll have to shut down, and because of that there will be job losses, and this is bad for India because India needs jobs. Its population is very high. So this is bad news. Let's see what happens in future. All right, and now let's quickly shift our focus to next news item, last news item, and that is US-India 2+2 dialogue. Now listen to me very carefully. India-USA relationship is very weird. Okay, USA needs India. India needs USA. USA needs India to counterbalance China, because China is the biggest rival for USA. India needs USA for support. Okay, because India also does not have that good relations with China. So it needs American support to counter China. So both countries need each other as far as geopolitics is concerned, geostrategic relations are concerned. Okay, they are geostrategic allies, they are geopolitical allies. And that is why both these nations are cooperating closely when it comes to defense, security, naval, maritime security, intelligence cooperation. They need each other. But when it comes to trade, well, these two countries are at loggerheads. They are fighting right now. Now, the good thing that policymakers in both countries are doing is that in areas where they have good relations, they are maintaining those good relations. Okay, so they are not allowing bad trade relations to harm their good trade relations, good relations in the areas like defense, maritime cooperation, intelligence cooperation. Okay, so they are not allowing bad trade relations to harm good defense relationship. Okay, and the proof of that lies in the fact that recently both these countries conducted 2+2 dialogue. Now this 2+2 dialogue between India and USA is a strategic dialogue. What is that? Let's talk about this. Okay, so US-India 2+2 dialogue, which was conducted recently. So what is it? So basically, what is 2+2 dialogue? Foreign Minister from India, Defense Minister from India will meet their counterparts from USA. Okay, so Foreign Minister in USA is Secretary of State. Okay, a Defense Minister in USA is Defense Secretary. So Foreign Minister from India, Defense Minister from India would meet Secretary of State and Defense Secretary from USA. That is why it is called 2 from India, 2 from USA, 2+2 dialogue. So it is basically foreign and defense ministers meet from each side. Okay, this mechanism, again, can you see the ministers who are meeting? Foreign ministers for geopolitics, international cooperation, and defense ministers for defense cooperation, because India requires American support and America requires India to be capable for defending itself against China, right? Because America wants India to counterbalance China. Clear? So this mechanism was established in 2018 during Donald Trump's first term. Okay, earlier, before 2018, it was strategic and commercial dialogue, which was replaced by 2+2 dialogue. India-USA 2+2 ministerial dialogue is intended to be held annually. Okay, what is the purpose of this dialogue? Defense cooperation, strategic issues like Indo-Pacific strategy, technology and trade cooperation, More importantly, India and USA want to cooperate in the Indo-Pacific region because China is asserting its dominance in this region. This is the reason why we are cooperating with Fiji also. Remember from yesterday's lecture? So these are the reasons. Clear? That's about it. And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. But it would add more value if you're consistent and regular with this lecture series and you revise it from the notes provided by us. So please do not forget to do that. And I shall see you next time with another set of news items. Thank you, everyone.